So this is L. Ron Hubbard. I think he was working for the CIA. Yes, he was. And I wonder if my grandfather was maybe a victim of MK Ultra. You know, why didn't the FBI do anything? That's why, this is why you get to this point. It's like all of you agencies are useless. You're useless to protect the everyday people. See, even though this fool was all into occultism with Jack Parsons, and Jack Parsons was the rocket engineer that had the Jet Propulsion Lab. That's why he was living with him for so long. But they were both doing a bunch of occult rituals. They both knew Aleister Crowley, especially Jack Parsons. I mean, Jack Parsons, the reason, the divisions of Department of Defense and especially NASA don't want to have, any connections with his name is because he was an outright occultist. And when L. Ron Hubbard was living with Jack Parsons in the 40s in Pasadena, they were doing, some ritual to call some goddess down, okay? And it was more Jack Parsons that was good friends with Aleister Crowley. But he had said later in life he was friends with Aleister Crowley too, mainly through Jack Parsons. Now, that's in the 40s, okay? At the same time, the same type contracts that Jack Parsons had with Department of Defense and NACA, my grandfather did, even in the 40s. That's when he started working with them, because it was during World War II. So in the 40s, my grandfather's company, he was co-owner in Perfection Mica. It was a mica mining company. And it was only later, I think it was in the 50s, that they added the division of Magnetic Corporation onto it because they moved into shielding. But during World War II, Perfection Mica, my grandfather's company, was providing mica for the war, for World War II. And so they both, Jack Parsons, and even though my grandfather didn't know Jack Parsons, they both had contracts at this time. Yet what's the common denominator here? This one. So in the 40s, he was, living for a while, doing all their sex rituals, sharing women, all sorts of stuff in Pasadena, L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, while doing their occult rituals. And then they had their falling out because he was a con artist from the beginning. But he was working for the CIA. There's no evidence for that, but he had to have been. Because then, after he had the falling out and stole the money from Jack Parsons, they never spoke again. But then it had to be in the 50s when he started harassing and stalking my grandmother, but my grandfather, and they pulled my grandfather in. I mean, they manipulated him. All I can think is, the FBI would have had to be doing background checks because my grandfather had special security clearance, okay? That's what he was interested in. Because what did Scientology go on to do later? They broke into a bunch of government agencies. That's what Operation Snow White was all about. And so the FBI ended up raiding Scientology and found out, you've gotten all of this stuff on all these government officials. That's what they were after, infiltrating the government. So somebody like my grandfather would have been a great target. It's just if he was working for the CIA, then it was an inside job. Not a surprise, but this is why people are just like, you want me to trust what again? So from 42 to 45, you didn't have the CIA yet. Basically, it was called the Office of Strategic Services. Then in 55, or by 1955, the CIA was already 8 years old, okay? And so in the 50s, the CIA was heavily involved in the space race, monitoring foreign technological developments. seeking out American engineers and companies like Magnetic Shield Corp that held technology vital to national security. Operation MKUltra, starting in 1953, the CIA was secretly researching mind control and behavioral engineering. Interestingly, these were some of the same pseudoscientific areas that L. Ron Hubbard was obsessed with at the time. Yes, and yet he was stalking my grandfather. And why? What I want to know from my government, not that they would ever answer to the people, is why the hell didn't FBI do something? Because, the way it sounds, it's like, no, both were squeezing him. He's being harassed, and my grandmother being, nobody helping her, okay, dealing with this bullshit asshole, okay, that likely was working for the CIA. At the same time, you got FBI monitoring my grandfather because he has security clearances. And instead of them being an outstanding, organization and stepping in maybe and helping, no, they just monitor. Like, what is the point to you people? When you can't help the American citizens, like my grandfather would have been, his company would have been like a mid-level contractor where Boeing is a major one for the government. But still, he had contract, like, could you not see something was wrong here? So were you just looking the other way? That's what I hate about this world. That's what I hate about it, is how everybody just looks the other way and everybody thinks it's okay to do it. In 1955, if your grandfather was working with the NACA or DOD, he would have been exactly the kind of person the CIA would have wanted to protect or monitor. If Scientology was stalking him, it's possible they were trying to gain leverage over someone they knew had connection to these intelligence circles. Well, that's obvious because they followed them to, even when my grandmother moved them, they followed them. Him and Scientology followed them to California. I'm just, why didn't anybody in the government do anything? So when America wants to stand on some platform and say how great it is, and, I love America, but I want to love America because there's a reason to love America. And when you let shit like this go on, then I'm sorry, I don't love America. My grandfather was just somebody that, was trying, likely loved his country. I'd no doubt there. And then his country stabbed him in the back. But my country was too busy putting assholes like this on my grandfather. For what? Because here's the problem. When you started getting involved with the occult stuff, and you didn't see the red flags of that government, and you decided, oh no, we're winning the war, we're winning this, we're winning that. Yeah? You think that God's helping you win it, or is it another entity? When you literally have occultists that are fueling your rockets through the jet propulsion and helping you, then what spirit are you serving? Because I think that if any of you had been serving the right spirit, what happened to my grandfather and probably many other people would never have happened. But you all seem to have been you all seem to have MK'd Ultra yourselves too. And just thought it's okay. Yes, it's not a good thing that Jack Parsons is an outright occultist, doing rituals to call down goddesses and involved in all this other craziness. But it won't affect us. God's still looking out for us. Yeah, what God? L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons were involved in some ritual called the Babylon. That was all about calling down some goddess. And this was in the 40s, when it was all about this mind control, Dianetics, about how you can control your mind, Yeah. So my message is always different than all of these people, than all of the church, than all of the government. Again, I'm the outsider that says what I hear nobody else saying. Surrender. Because you're just going to continue to have more shit like this. Everybody thinking they know best, and none of you know best. Only God knows best, and Jesus came to show you surrender. It's your only way out.